Let me switch up. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, Chineke.
Yeah, we're live now.
Hello. All right. Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Phorlajormey, and I'll be taking your class on low-fidelity prototype for design. So far you've been having classes on from when you started your interview to when you did that's your research process from your user research 1, 2, 3, where you have to go through the process of finding out what your user wants, picking out your pain points, your empathy mapping, creating your user stories, and your user journey, and all of those things. Now, when it comes to design process, after doing all of those things, the next step for you to do is for you to validate those concept that you've carried out on from your earlier research process. That is, from all those things you've put aligned in your users. Now, before you go ahead and just start design, you want that design to look how it is more like you're trying to lay your foundation down. Your layout will be looking like how your functionalities will go about. So, and part of your low fidelity for is the process of when you're doing your Wi-Fi, your and your sketches and all. So this is basically like low fidelity is basically like you're trying to lay a foundation of your design. That is what you're designing, what your design will be building on. So you already have the concept of the hub so far. You've done your research and all of this, and now you're trying to translate all of those research and your user research, everything. You're trying to translate it into your design, which will guide you before you actually do the whole wireframing. Wireframing is a how will I put it? Is the more like, okay, let me relate it in a simpler term. When you're carrying out a foundation for building, the way you have your sketches, you have your architect, the architect has drawn the outline of how the whole foundation will look like and how things will do. That's the same thing with your wireframing. You're trying to use your wireframing to see how your spacing, how you have to incorporate your user flow, how your basic functionality, the page structure, the overview of how your information architecture and the user flow and your user journey, how you've created them and how they will work. So you can relate designing to when a builder is trying to build. So yes, you already have all those other informations that you've gathered so far. Now the wireframe is your major foundation. It's the level where, okay, yes, okay, let's assume the user research you've been carrying now has been your foundation. You found out how good the land is, how soft it is, what kind of land texture it is. You're putting your gravels and all of that to fill up your foundation. Now you need to start tracing, start building up. That's where the wireframe comes in, where you have to build up your structure on your page, knowing, okay, how this button will be placed, where the button will be staying, and what will be here, and how it will look, how the functionality will work. Some people go ahead to even prototype to show the functionalities of their lo-fi designs to see, okay, yes, this is how it works. Basically, and this will all be in, how will I call it? It's going to be in bare colors. It's not going to have any major aesthetics to it. It's just literally plain how it will be, more like a house that you've built, but you've not painted it, you've not decorated it. That's basically what low fidelity gives you. Now, showing you sample of how there are different ways people do their wireframe. For me, this is how I work on my wireframe. So now, for this particular app, this is a concept of a fintech app. So I have my onboarding screen here, my sign up screen, my login screen, and my dashboard. Now, this square that I'm placing here is just to show me a sign that, okay, yes, I'm going to have something like an image here. So I'm placing a plain box, a plain frame here, showing me that, yes, an image is going to be here. This is representing that, yes, I'm going to have a text that's going to represent here. And this represents my buttons. Basically, if you notice, this is just plain black. It has no color to it. You can't say, okay, yes, this is the design, but you can say that, yes, this is the amount of spacing that will be between this and that and this, because everything has been aligned. So by the time you now want to actually continue building up, putting your aesthetics and all the basic things, following your color style and the other part that you've highlighted down, it will be easier for you to carry on. Although when you're carrying out your wireframe, that's your low fidelity, you have to also follow your spacing system, your build system, and all those things. Everything needs to be in place because that's what you're going to build on. Now, for this sign up page, I'm already showing how my text, input text box will be. Obviously, this is showing that, okay, text will be here. This is an input text space, This is showing that a button. Basically, all of this is showing me how my foundation have been laid. And this is my login screen where you have something representing that, yes, something's going to be here, something's going to be here, same here. So basically, in the design, this is the foundation of the fintech app I want to create. So now this is the dashboard. For now, I cannot say that, okay, this is the color that will be here, or this will be, but I'm putting this to represent that, yes, this will be a card that will carry certain amount of information. This will be like a profile picture, and obviously this has profile picture of certain people and some names or some words will be here, which for now you cannot tell because this is basically the foundation of my designs. And that's what basically wireframing is. Wireframing gives you that sense of direction of how you want your layout to be. With this, I already have an idea of how my layout to be. Now, moving on from the wireframe to see how that has been converted to my lo-fi. Now, remember this onboarding screen where I have an image here and text here and these buttons. Now, coming out to my lo-fi here, you see my text are here, the image has been represented here. I have my get started button, that's my primary button, and my second button, which has been represented. If you notice, this is still play, just like when you're building a house. Like I said, I'll be referring to building a house because that's what's closer to this that will make you understand into details. So now the wireframe is that foundation that you've built. Now you've now started building your house, you've plastered it, but you've not painted. You've removed the rooms and everything. You've put all of those, but you've not painted. So there's no color to it yet. That color style is not yet there yet. But yes, my spacing system is top notch. My image is where I want it to be. The text is where I want it to be. I'm following the hierarchy. I need the text to follow. Same thing with my sign the create account screen. This is showing the steps of my onboarding process, the text of create account. And if you look at this and look at this, you notice that yes, something was being represented here, which I have done here as well. And this input text, those are the input text I've laid that, okay, yes, it's going to have input text. And then these are the input text that I've represented here initially. However, there's a possibility that things might change from what you've done in your wireframe. By the time I now start doing my lo-fi here, I might decide that, oh, I need to add another additional information. Since it's fintech app, I can decide that, okay, yes, I want them to have a unique user ID. I can decide to add that here. All you need to do at that point is to update your lo-fi to know that, yes, okay, yes, you decide to add this. Because as you design, you begin to understand some things that, oh, probably during your lo-fi, you skipped one particular thing, but does not stop you from adding it when you're even doing your hi-fi design. That is the major design that will have all the color and the aesthetic. So now, based on the sign-ups page, you put all your important information and everything. You put all the major actions that's supposed to happen in the in a sign-up page. However, everything is strictly gray and white, not entirely. Majority of people call it black and white, but it's more like gray and white because you can't use the black 00 black. That's too harsh for the eye. And one thing, don't use color code 000 for any text whatsoever. No matter what you're writing, never use that text. It's too bad for the eye. So now moving on to the login screen. Now you see we have this information how the user can just log in with the password, this and this and that. All of this has been laid out in the foundation before, like look at this, look at that. And this sign was there, and where by the time the lo-fi is being done, the same thing is being replicated because the foundation has guided me through to know that, okay, this is what I want to do here. And like I said, everything still remains in the lo-fi state, black and gray and all of that, it sticks. Now moving on to the dashboard. On getting to my dashboard, I said when I did this, I had these forms just to represent that, okay, some information are definitely going to be here as text and all. And if you come here, you can see that, yes, I have a card representing probably an account balance, the details, welcome, message, and this represented my icons. And like I said, this cards represents names, and probably this will obviously represent pictures of the people that I'll be using for this part. That is the avatars that I'll be using. They represent avatar space. And here has my transaction history where I have certain text, and all of this has been accounted for while I did this. Even though I didn't exactly state how I was going to write it, but I showed that yes, this will have some text which have been done here. And if you notice, the nav bar here, I just showed that it's going to have 4 icons in the nav bar, 4 major attributes in the nav bar, 4 major CTAs. And when it comes to my nav bar here, you would see that I have all those things with the icons I try to represent. Now, if you notice, one thing is I have all my text, that's all my copy in place. However, the only thing missing here is there's no color to it. There's no major aesthetics, but my spacing is consistent. You can see the spacing between this and this is 16 spacing, which is the 8-point spacing system that I've been using. The spacings are 16. So when you're doing your lo-fi and your Wi-Fi, you need to maintain that spacing system, because by doing that from the beginning, by the time you're doing your hi-fi, it also helps you to stick to that pattern, and you don't have to have the stress of, oh, your spacing is incorrect, you did not follow the right grid system, all of those things. So when you decide to do your Wi-Fi from the beginning, you need to follow what's it called, the spacing system you've created. You need to follow the typography you've selected. You need to follow the same fonts you decide to use. You also need to follow what's it called, the icons you need to use. You must use the same, which you already know that you must use the same icons in the same what's it called, icon pack. Aside that, again, your grid system have to be the same, and you must follow your grid system. If you notice, the spacing for my grids here is same as this. So you need to really follow all of those things strictly, because those are what will help you when you're doing your hi-fi. But when everything is already right in place at your lo-fi level, you'll be hit by the time you're converting your lo-fi to an hi-fi, by adding colors, by adding other things you need to add in your low file, in your high file, it will be much easier because you've already followed those rules. So probably the mistakes that you have to correct from your high file will probably be maybe your use of color. And now, if you notice, yes, lo-fi and your Wi-Fi is in black and white. Now, you know, when you were creating your style guide, you already have your primary colors, your secondary colors, and your error, your state colors, your text colors, and all. You need to understand that you don't just combine colors when you're trying to move from your lo-fi to your Wi-Fi. You need to strictly follow these colors you've selected in your style guide. And I noticed that, yeah, some of you, when you were doing your style guide, you didn't really pick colors that fit each other. Some of you selected colors that were contrasting each other, like the contrasts were so bad. So when you're trying to choose your color palette that will fit what you're trying to do, you need to select color that actually fits in together such that by the time you come back to your lo-fi to hi-fi design, it will bring out that touch, that magic touch. You want that color to pop to it. So like this, sorry about that. So like this, you have this. Just imagine by the time you had your color to this, how mad it would be. You'll be having a class regarding hi-fi tomorrow, which will be continuation of this. So, but I don't want to pack everything in one. That's why we try to split it so that you'll be able to understand. Because so far, all the research you've been carrying on from all what you'll be doing, the goal is for you to actually design the product. So now you'll be having a task where you have to do the lo-fi of the research you've been carrying on so far, and then you do the high and the wireframe and the lo-fi, depending on how you want to do it. Some people do the lo-fi without bother doing the wireframing. It depends. Some people just decide to instead of doing the wireframing on Figma, some people decide to sketch in their notebook or their sketchbook and all. It depends on however it works for you. There's no one way to it. When it comes to wireframe, you can decide to just sketch it in your journals, and then you do the lo-fi on your Figma, and then do your hi-fi, depending on what works for you. And when it comes to low fidelity, one of the major part of low fidelity is one key thing is, let me get the frame and drop it first. One key thing of low fidelity that also will help you a lot when you're trying to create your low fidelity is number one, listing the features that you want your app to have. Now, this is a fintech app. When coming, I know that, yes, I need an onboarding screen, right? Let me zoom in just in case some of you know. That's one thing I know I need. Okay, let me do this. Okay, so this is one thing I know I need. I know I need a login screen. A login screen. I know that I need a sign up screen. I know I need a dashboard. I know I need a nav bar. I know probably my dashboard, what are the contexts that I want to be in my dashboard? For example, let's say, okay, yes, I want to be able to see my account balance. And what else? I want to see my transaction history. I want to be able to see my friend list now, based on what I've designed. Friend list, friends to send money to. Okay, now, based on this list, right, these are the things that I know that, yes, I want to have in this place before I start my design, right? So this will help you keep yourself in check to know that, yes, you've not skipped some step, you've not skipped some process. So when you're done designing your onboarding script, for example, whether in your wireframe or your lo-fi, on your first lo-fi, you can checkbox it only after you've done the high fidelity of it. So once you're done with your entire design, you start doing your checkbox. Oh yes, you've done your onboarding script. Oh yes, you've done that way. You don't get to miss anything because before you started, you already listed out every single thing you needed, all the features you want to include in your uh in your in your design, in the entire app. And with that, that will really help you in guiding you through the whole low fidelity thing. One of a friend that I know always called this the lowest fidelity, and I use this a lot to just keep myself in check, to know that yes, I've carried this out, I've carried that out, and it has always been helpful. And now the other time I mentioned color theory. When I say color theory, I mean ability to combine color that suits together, that fits in together, that gives you that magic touch, that gives you that wow aesthetic, that makes people say, wow, this design is cool because you selected colors that were fit into each other. So there's this site which I think I'll be sharing it. I think it has been shared with you guys. When you come to these colors, it's a really good site for you to see color palette that fits together and for you to know how to combine those colors. Yeah, you can pick color. I know, yes, you already have your style guide, but it doesn't mean you cannot change the colors you selected, because a lot of you selected colors that didn't fit together. I think somebody used this set of colors for our design and this particular palette, and it was really nice. I love the aesthetic of that design because by looking at this palette, you see how the feels go together. That particular design, when I saw it, I like the way the person applied the color theory. The person used all these colors you're seeing in this palette, and the person used it in the right way. The person used it in the right flow. Same as this. If you look at this color palette, you see how they flow together. They give you that fine aesthetics that you need. So this is one, as beginner, this, for example, this really helps you, especially when you're struggling in deciding which color you want to use or how you want to combine those colors. So this can really help you in picking out. So because you've created colors before, doesn't mean that you cannot go back and change those colors. Like now, this is one color palette that is really amazing, and I really like it. It works together, it flows together. So yes, this site is one side that helps you, like when you're confused about color, you can easily come here and select color palette. You can create your own color palette to see whether it fits or not. That's before you move to your hi-fi designs and all of those things. So yeah, basically that's it from my head. So from now I would take questions. So if you have questions, you can bring them up now. Uh, Let me check the YouTube for your questions. Okay, I think I'll have to check Slack. I don't know where you guys are sending the questions. So where is my Slack? Okay. Oops. Can someone just share the YouTube link? Let me check questions from YouTube. Okay, I found the YouTube link here. Oops. Sorry about that. Please can, okay, what's the difference between lo-fi and Wi-Fi? So Wi-Fi is part of lo-fi because Wi-Fi is it's a process where you just sketch out things and put things in place. uh like let me use this now. based on this Based on what you see here, you can see the difference. In my Wi-Fi, you can't exactly tell what is going to be here and that, but you just have a structure of something will be in this particular space, something will be here, something will be here. So Wi-Fi just gives you that direction of, okay, something has to be placed here. While in your lo-fi, you can specifically like put those things in place, design everything accordingly. However, it also still remains in your black and white mode. It's not in what's it called? It's not, you don't add color to it or anything. It sticks to black and white. So Wi-Fi, lo-fi has more information in than a Wi-Fi, than a wireframing. Your low fidelity hard. So the Wi-Fi is part of your wireframing is part of your low fidelity. I'm trying not to confuse you. Your wireframing is part of your low fidelity. So while doing your low fidelity, you're doing the wireframing, then it's all part together because it could be this type of wireframing and it could be the sketching, depending on whichever one you want to do. Can I use a new style guide in subsequent tasks? I don't think I'm proud of my previous. Yes, you can. If you based on the fact that you've been learning more and you see that yes, you don't want to you see that yes, you don't want to stick to that style guide, you can use a new style guide to work on this project. You can use it because the previous style guide, majority of you use it for your mini project. So yes, you can create a new style guide for yourself to work on this. A matter of your choice, you can create a new style guide. Do we use Figma or Figjam for wireframing? It all depends on you. I use Figma. Figjam is more easy to use for user story and user journey and all of those things. But uh, but for me, I just want to what's it called? I just use Figma for everything, including my user story and all. Depending, but if you feel like you can try using Figjam, yeah, there are different possible ways you can try it, but I use Figma basically. Please, can you explain spacers and hierarchy more? I'm still confused. Okay, one thing with spacers, it's not necessarily that you impute spacers into your design. Spacers is just there for you to be conscious of the fact that the space you're giving a particular element to another. Like here, I didn't impute a spacer here, but when I was working, I was conscious that I want the space between this element and this element to be 16, which is the 8-spacing system. So with spacers, it makes you, because you're beginners, it makes you, how would I put it, conscious of the fact that, okay, this is the spacing and how, because one thing with design, your alignment, your spacing, they need to be accurate for that design to be bam. They need to be accurate. More reason why we emphasize on spacers. Spacers guide is like a guide. So with spacers, you get to know that, okay, yeah, the spacing between different elements that you're using is certain this. That way it makes your work unique, it makes it in sync. Why hierarchy? It has to do with what's it called? How will I put it? It has to do with what you want what you want your user to see first. Now, on coming to this design Figma board, the first thing I want you to see is to know that yes, this up section is a wireframe, while this down section is low fidelity, right? Is a lo-fi. So reason why this is bold, this is bold. Now, when you zoom in and you're here, for example, let's assume this text. Based on what you see that this text is big, this is small. Now, the essence of this what's it called, hierarchy, is that I want you to see this big text before you see this. If I decide to increase this to be bigger or smaller, you see this, for example, assuming I make this, let's say 36. Let me change this to like 60, right? But I'm sticking to this. And obviously, when you come to this page, the first thing your eye see is this, and your eye doesn't see this. Meanwhile, my major message I'm trying to tell you is to save, spend, and send your money. So let me Ctrl Z this. But now that it's here, you can see save, spend, and send your money. So based on hierarchy, the words, the message you want your user to see at a glance initially is what you bring boldly to their face. It has to be bold and thick for them to see it, for you to let them know that, yes, this is what I want you guys to see. So with hierarchy, you're trying to control the user eye to see the most important information first. That's the concept of hierarchy. You're trying to let them know that, okay, this is your eye should see there, and the human eye is like that. We see things that are bigger for us before we go to things that are smaller. So that's the same system that which hierarchy works with. Going to the next question. Can you just redesign the lo-fi? No, I'm not redesigning it live. You've been designing, you've seen how to design. It's nothing different. Normal design, just I did not use color. I left it gray. So it's just the only difference is just the color. So no, I'm not redesigning live. How does this apply website design? Same thing with website. If you're doing website, it's the same process you use. If you're trying to design, for example, let's say if you're trying to design, let me pick a desktop screen here, for example. I'm picking the desktop screen and I want to create a lo-fi for this. I know how to have an header. I'll be picking my header. Let's assume my header will be height 4. I'll move this here and the header will be here, obviously. And then I'm giving it a fill. My fill color will be this. So this represents that an header will be here. I know I'll have a sidebar, for example. Let's assume this is a dashboard, right? So I know I'll be having a sidebar. And mind you, always use a frame. Don't use rectangle or groups. Always use a frame. Always use a frame. So now I have this. Now I pick my color as well. I pick this color. So this already, I'm telling you that something will be here and something will be here. And yes, probably I'll have a bunch of cards there. For example, I'll come here to design my cards. I'm using this to represent cards, right? So let me put this in auto layout to have my consistency. And then my card will be, if they are going to be rounded edges, let's say my edges will be 16. Same with these. So let's just assume if this is a movie site where you have list of movies, right? So now, remember, I'm working with 8 spacing system. So I need this to be like, let's say about 64. And then I need this to be about, let's say, about 64 as well. I'm giving it equal spacing. You see, I'm not using spacer, but I'm conscious of the fact that, yes, this is the space here. And the space between my 2 elements, I want to give it, let's say, 32. So I have that. So I'm duplicating this. And then I need to duplicate this as well. Let's just assume this is this. So this will be also in auto layouts, give it a space of 32. Now, always give your spacing of your cards equal horizontally and vertically. They have to be equal. Don't use anything less than that. So let's assume this is a dashboard. So I have my wireframe already for a web screen. So regardless of screen you want to design, can do the wireframe. It depends on your spacing or your style guide that you've created or whatsoever. And it's as simple as that. Now, how do you import colors we want to use from the color side? Oh, okay, this side. Okay, I think you have an opportunity to download it. Like you can save the palette or export the palette, or best bet, you can. I've copied this color code now, right? I clicked on this, I copied the color code, and then you can come to Figma. If you do, for example, let me just click here and Control V. Look at it, the color code is here. I have the color code. So if I want to change this text to that color, it's a matter of coming here and inputting the color code F7C59F. And then you have the color code. So it's not difficult to get. The color code are written there. You can write it out, you can copy it, you can download it. It's flexible. You can save it. It's flexible as much as you want. On the color system, are there specific color combination in Illustrator? I notice most fintechs go for blue. Yeah, when it comes to color code, you know, one thing with colors is that colors tell you more about products. Like, okay, I'll be sharing a link to a previous video from last year's classes. I think I'll share that link about colors. Colors tell you, speak more about the product. Color blue speaks more about somebody that is rich, somebody that is royal, there's money involved. That's why a lot of products go for blue, purple, orange, other type of colors. They speak to finances. So some colors speak to specific things. I'll share that link to that video. It will be added to your dashboard so that you can watch that video as well to understand it, how some colors speak, what some color represents, what black represents, what white represents. I feel that will help you understand the whole color system. What's the next question? Sorry, these questions are so much. How do you input? Okay, how do you how do you need? Okay, question. Do you need to create style guide from scratch for every project you want to work on? Yes, you do. You really do. For any project you want to work on, every project is unique. Every project is unique on its own. Yeah, their style guide will be different because the fonts will be different. The only thing that might be the same is probably your spacing and your grid, but your fonts will be different. Your buttons might be different. In this project, you might be using rounded buttons, and in previous button, different project, you are using squared with cornered with a little bit rounded corner or perfectly sharp edged squared. It depends. So yes, every project is different. Every product is different. Font is different. Color style is different. The color combination is different. So yes, for every project, as a product designer, for every product you're working on, every product has to be unique on its own. What else? Okay, if I want to pick colors from the website emotion, can 2 shades of the same color be my primarily colors on second? I don't understand that. I don't think 2 shades of the same color. Just once you see the color theory, you understand better. And then I think from the color palette, when you see the one that suits what you want, you don't just pick any color. You pick a color that fits the kind of product you want to work on. Like, for example, if you're working on something that has to do with furniture and whole, furniture speaks to nature. It has to do with something brown, nude, light brown. Like, even in reality, you're working on that agri-tech now. Agro means something environment-like. That goes with green. That goes with stuff that speaks to healthiness. You're working in health, medical, on a medical product. Colors that represent medical products are white, red, purple, some of those things. So you colors that is in line with, yes, the industry you're working with. Sometimes some products stand out and just pick random colors. Yeah, that works. But as a beginner, you need to familiarize yourself with using colors that blends more with the industry you're working with. Is the wireframe and loafer created from a style guide or after? Well, it is after you've had your style guide, obviously, because the fonts that you're using in your lo-fi is the fonts you've mentioned in your style guide, in your typography. So yes, it's after your style guide that you create, you create your, what is it called? Your user story, your user journey, all those texts you'll be using there, you stick to the fonts you're using, you've been working on and all. So because it's the fonts I've selected. I'm using Manual Peer, for example. It's the font that you selected from your style guide that you use that you have to use for your lo-fi. So yes, you have to stick to your style guide before doing your lo-fi and your lo-fi. What is this? Can you is it necessary to do a wireframe and lo-fi to get that? It feels repetitive, and you can do any one. There is no strict way that say you have to do all of it. However, when you get to some organization, they specifically tell you, I want to see your lo-fi, I want to see your wireframe, because at that stage, they want to know whether some functionality in the design will work. They want to know whether some things in that design will be viable before you move on to your hi-fi, so that they don't have to go back and forth in the hi-fi that, oh, let's take this out. They want to see how those things work in your lo-fi. So in as much as you feel like it's a repetitive or something like that, it's also important because you have clients, you have organizations that require you to do it. So it's good you learn how to do it. So when you find yourself in a situation where they're demanding that, you're able to actually deliver on that. And also, like I said, a beginner. Yes, you want to do shortcuts and just do it. The thing is, it helps you in putting your design into proper structure. Can we change the start guide in projects? Yes, this has been answered. Yes, you can change it because there are two different projects. You can change it, definitely change it. I will advise you just change it. Change the color you use. Don't use the same colors you use for your mini project for this project. They are two different works, so don't use the same system for them. If you want to pick colors from the website you mentioned, okay, yeah, I think this has been answered. This is a repetitive. Is the wireframe and if I created, I've answered this. Can you shed more light on textiles? This has been taken before. Wait, this is a class on lo-fi. I'll try and see if I can touch that. But and the stag. Wait, hold on. I think the questions are getting mixed up. Okay. Prototype. Prototype is different entirely. Prototype is when you try to show the functionality and the interaction of your design. So you've not gotten to prototype level yet. Until when your design is done, or sometimes after doing your low fidelity, you can decide to prototype to see how it functions. It all depends on what your client is demanding from you, or what you decide to use for yourself. So for you to see how the functionality work or one animation will work, you can prototype at your lo-fi before doing your high fidelity. So prototyping is different entirely. You need to have designed before you do prototype. Can we use two different fonts? No, you cannot use two different fonts for an app. It has to be one font. However, your logo can have a different style, but across a design, a beginner, just stick to using one font for a project. Is it necessary to do wireframe and lo-fi together? It feels repetitive. Okay, I think this question has been asked before. It's not necessary, but it is very, very important. It guides you as a beginner. It's just, I would say, it guides you, so it's good you know how to do it, because you can get to situations where they demand you to do it and you have no choice than to please your client. Do you need to create a style guide from scratch for every? Yes, you do. I've answered this question. These questions are repetitive. Can we change that? Yes, you can change the style guide if you want to pick color from the same. Okay, I think I've answered all these questions. Do we need to create lo-fi for every screen and features of the app? Yes, you do, because if you've created the lo-fi, that will be easier for you to convert them to hi-fi. Is it necessary for Wi-Fi, considering the fact that we could be doing lo-fi? Yes, you can decide to make your Wi-Fi a sketch on your book. The essence of wireframing, sorry, I've been calling it Wi-Fi, it's wireframing. The essence of wireframing is for you to know where your layout will be, to know where you want to place a button, to know where this will be. So wireframing is like your sketch, right? So your low fidelity is you converting your sketch into actual design, like this. When you come to look at this is my sketch. Yeah, this is just my sketch. It's until I converted it to this before it starts making sense of what I've sketched down. So yeah. Now say, okay, is it necessary to do, considering the fact that, okay, this is a repetitive question. When designing my mini project, sometimes following the style guide, example in icons, it didn't really look nice. Do we have to always abide by the style guide, or can we read it sometimes? The thing is, if you've selected your style guide and you feel like you want to change something, if you're changing something in your design, make it reflect in your style guide as well. Because if you're doing a work and you're handling it to the developers, or you're handling it to the clients, that style guide helps the developers as well to know the color system they will have to impute, to know the fonts they have to put into their list, to know the component they have to create. So if you've done a style guide and you start working on the project and you feel like, oh, you don't like this icon pack again, you want to use another one, change the entire icon pack in your style guide, go to your style guide and replace it, because that way whoever it's also good for documentation. Whenever it's going to the design, they will know that, oh, this is what you're using, and you'll be consistent. So yes, you might have done your start guide and realize you want to change something. You can go back, change it, and use whatever you want to change in your design. So nobody's stopping you from doing that. How do you ensure the color accuracy? Because even the X color appears differently on different screens. Yeah, exactly. That's one thing no one has control over. So like the way color would be clear on a very high powered system won't be like that on a low powered system. So the best thing is sometimes is to work with color codes or ensure that you're picking colors that's why here they attach the color codes there. So the way to look here on this screen, by the time you check it on another system, it might not look exactly like this, but the fact that you have the color code, that will help you make it look consistent. So yeah, color code works with that. Okay. Do we attach a new style guide, the wireframing design? Now, this is your wireframe design. It's in this file, you have to do your high fidelity. So you have a page for style guide, a page for your wireframe, a page for your lo-fi, and a page for your hi-fi design. Hi-fi design, that's the high fidelity design. So just use one single file. You have your style guide that you want to use for it. You have a page for your wireframing, a page for your low fidelity, and a page for your hi-fi design. So it's just that single file you should use. That helps you without the stress of, oh, you did not remember to give access to that. So once you created one file, just ensure that yes, you've given access to that particular file. So you just use the number of pages, and then you have a chance to put everything in one single file. She made mention that always use frame when she was creating the website. She was referring to navbar. I'm talking about anything you're doing in design. Use frame. Use a frame. I'm so addicted to using frame that if I decide I want to create an ellipse, this ellipse you're seeing here, I will use a frame to create it. And this is for me, this is how I use my ellipse to create a frame. Let me give this a color. So now I want this to be a frame. First, I give it equal ends. Let's say I give it 200 by 200, right? Now this is a square, but I need it to be a circle because I need to use a circle to do something. I'll come here, give it exactly 200. I'll give it, oh, okay, something changed. So this is 200. So I have this. So now 200 by 200, I have my circle. Now I can fit in anything I want to fit into my circle. I have my ellipse. I don't have to, you see, I don't like using this ellipse. I don't like using this. I only use them on rare occasions where I know I don't have choice. So with from frame, I can create my rectangle or whatsoever it is that I want to create. So yes, frame is the best for anything you want to create on Figma. And no matter how tiny it is, if you look at this, this is a frame. This is a frame. No matter how tiny it is I want to create, I would always create a frame. I always create a frame for anything I want to do because it makes you safe. Like you can nest anything into it anyhow at any point that you want. I can put this without it. Now look at the difference between using a frame and just use, let me get a circle, right? This is an ellipse. I've drawn it. Let me give it 200 by 200, 200 by 200. Right? Now, they're the same size. Now, I also want to use this. I want to put it inside there, and I do Control V. Let me put it here. Now, they are standing on each other. When you look at it, you think they are inside each other. However, for this frame, this text is inside because when you come to your lower part here, you can see that this is nested here. But when you come here, these are separate because look, by the time I try to carry this, can you see separating? Can you see separating from each other? When I come here, can you see separating? Because it is ellipse. For it to be together, I have to now do this, and then Control G to group it. It's until I group it together. And if I double click and do like this, it's gone. Control Z, Z, Z. So I've ungrouped it. But for this, I don't even need to group because when I carry it, it just goes together. They go with together. What they say, it's dancing around. So the best and safest way is for you to always use a frame. Do I create the file or process of what screens to be? Yes, your MVP, your deliverable, your most viable part of your product, your most viable part of your product. Are we submitting the same file as last week? I don't understand. I didn't follow up with that, so I cannot answer that particular question. I don't want to mislead you. Is there a number of colors you are? Yes, there is. You have to use a specific number of colors. You can't be using 100 colors in one app. That's why we have the primary color, secondary color, and that's what's your accent color. Then you have your warning colors, and then you must not use too much color. And your primary color will, you can do your 60-30 or 70-30 or 75-25. So my primary color will be my 75, my secondary color will be my 25%, depending on how you want to balance it. You cannot be putting, jam packing plenty colors inside one what's it called, one app. It will look like what is going on. You need to, yeah, there's a limited number. Are we submitting the same file? Okay, I said I can. Okay. Are there recommended font size in mobile apps? Yes, there are. There's a hierarchy. Like for me, when I'm creating my typography, you have my header text. The biggest it can be for my mobile screen. The biggest maybe 32 words 36. I don't go beyond that, depending on what I'm even doing. The smallest I go for text on my mobile is 12 because I don't want it to be too tiny so that my user can see it. And my regular font I use mostly within my app is 16 or 14. That's my preference. Why for web? I can go as far as 64, 100 and something, depending on how I want the hero page to be. Now, if it's just within the site, my font text size is usually I go for 18 and 16. And sometimes I use 24, depending on the header that I want to use. So yeah, sometimes it's good to, but all my font size still also kind of follow the 4 and 8 point spacing system that I go between 10, 12, 16, 24, 18, 20, 32, 36, 40, 48, 64, 56, like that. That's the system I use. And I think that's the last question. The person saying, asking question about same file as before. I would say since this will be the beginning of your, what's it called, your major design, I would say you should just create a new file that's using your, what's it called, Figma. Create a new Figma file. Now, the way I've created a Figma file, I have my mood board, I have my practice and this. So you can have your style guide, your iFi and wireframing, your iFi and wireframing, depending on however you want to name it. And then just ensure when you come here, you make sure that, see now, I made this that you can only view prototype link. I can decide to make, then if I want you to be able to view it, I'll put it, you can view, anybody can view, depending on the settings, and then before you copy, always give access to can view. Always give access to can view. I'm just putting this here, but make sure you set your access to view, because once they are not able to view, they just call you 0.5. And there's nothing can be done. Your tax will not be regraded after that. Yes, you are creating wireframe for this start. You are creating a wireframe and your Lo-fi. You are to make you understand structure, to make you understand that yes, you need to follow. It's just like you want to build a house and you don't want to do foundation. Is it possible? You're a beginner. Yes, and I'm using the word beginner because you're a beginner, literally. If you guys are beginners, I don't want you guys to skip steps. When you become pro, you can start skipping steps whenever you want. But as a beginner, yes, you must do your wireframe and your low fidelity, and then your high fidelity. It is compulsory to do it. I think that will be your next task. Your next task is to do your wireframe, your low fidelity. You will see that by the time you now want to convert those to high fidelity, you see how easy it will be for you. You just need to be changing the color text and all, and it's easy peasy. It's easy peasy for you. Tomorrow's class you'll be having on high fidelity. You see how this low fidelity are being converted to high fidelity. You see how easy it will be. So yes, your next task will definitely be creating a wireframe and then creating a low fidelity. And I think that's the last question for the day. Thank you for listening. Any further questions? If there's none, I hope what I've said has been helpful. So yes, I would send you the link to the website, and I'll put it. I'll tell the coordinator to attach it to your task, and also the link to the video regarding color theory. It will be attached on your dashboard for you guys to see, so that you'll be able to, go through it. So thank you. I will stop sharing now.